The Debt Commission doing their thing, making recommendations. Fiscal watchdog Tom McClintock on the program coming up next.
I think Fred Thompson said it best in that weird kind of phony campaign ad back in the day. I sure wish we'd listen to Tom McClintock. We'll talk to Tom McClintock next.
You're listening to the Armstrong and Getty Show.
This is it. No more fun and games, smoke and mirrors, alchemy, trickery, cunning, CYA, demagoguery, and making promises we can't possibly keep.
Senator Simpson, if I gave you 30 seconds of free TV time, what is your 30-second pitch on the urgency and importance of doing something about this?
Any young person, better start paying attention. This may not be the greatest generation. It might be the greediest generation. And sober up or sleep in the streets.
Sober up or sleep in the streets. Both of the Debt Commission chairs making strong statements over the last couple of weeks. We're doomed as a nation if we don't adopt this program. They vote tomorrow, and they got to get 14 votes out of 18 for it to move forward at all.
We're joined by the guy who's been right all along, Congressman Tom McClintock, former Assemblyman, state senator here in California. Tom, how are you?
Just fine, guys. How are you doing?
Good. On the one hand, vindicated. On the other hand, heading off the cliff at 100 miles per hour. How are you feeling?
How do you feel about the Debt Commission?
It's nice to know that we've reached at least a period in our history when it's cool to want to cut spending. And all of the teeth gnashing about the commission's proposal kind of gives you an idea of just how desperate the situation is. This is a very modest proposal. We're right now, just out of the federal budget alone, we're consuming 24% of GDP, just the federal government alone, 24%. This commission is going to take that figure down over the next 15 years from 24% all the way down to 22%. and just to put things in perspective, as recently as 2000, we were spending about 18% of GDP at the federal level. So We've got a long way to go.
So, first of all, do you like what they've put together?
Oh, absolutely, I do. Again, there are parts that I think need to be adjusted. For example, I don't think you can change the deduction rules overnight for those who've made critical investment decisions based on those rules. For example, the most important purchase that a family makes is its home.
Right.
And the most important factor in that decision is the mortgage interest deduction. Can you afford it or not? A lot of the answer to that question rests with the mortgage interest deduction. So you just can't change that rule
sure, overnight,
after they've made their decision. But you certainly can do it prospectively.
Yeah, that's a tough one because overnight a lot of people would not be able to afford their house anymore.
Exactly.
Of course, the tax rate will go down so much you have a lot more money that you're keeping.
Well, and that's what they're proposing. They're saying we need a flatter, broader, lower tax rate, and they're absolutely right. That's what's going to produce economic growth and ultimately produce more revenue.
Tom, we have been spending the last couple of days going over the website expectmore.gov, which is the White House, the government's own website that rates the effectiveness of federal programs. And it finds many, many of them to be terribly wanting, ineffective, poorly designed, scattershot, redundant, etc. The government itself has identified many, many programs costing many, many, many billions of dollars as totally ineffective. But they continue. Why do they continue? And is there anything we can do about it?
Because they all have constituencies that are making a lot of money through them. And what we're going to do, the new Republican leadership in the House has made this very, very clear. We are going to focus on cutting spending as the first, second, third priorities of this new Congress. There are going to be days set aside that are going to be to hear every spending reduction proposal that a member wants to bring to the House. You could start with, just the unspent stimulus funds, the $1 trillion over the next 10 years for Obamacare, all of the subsidy payments, including the farm and the energy subsidies that essentially bribe people to do things that nobody in his right mind would ever do unless they were being bribed. It goes on and on.
We're talking with Congressman Tom McClintock. This debt commission tomorrow, they vote. A lot of people seem to be pretty skeptical as to whether or not they'll get the 14 out of 18 votes. I don't quite understand how this thing works. If they don't get the votes, is it just over and done, and now we move on to a different way to approach this?
Well, as I understand it, and I'm not a member of that commission, so I haven't read the rules. But my understanding is, with that threshold of 14 votes, they actually make a formal proposal to the Congress that Congress has to vote on. But whether they reach that threshold, and that's a pretty heavy threshold to meet. 14 out of 18 members have to agree to it. But even if they don't, they have laid out a blueprint for the first steps that have to be taken to bring the nation's spending back under control. And I think you're going to see most of those proposals enacted, at least by the House. I can't tell you what the Senate's going to do or what the President would do. But
if they do approve it, you think there's a decent chance it could make it through the House then?
I think, again, with certain exceptions, like you can't change the rules overnight on people when they've already made their decisions. But I think the vast majority of the proposals would be supported by the vast majority of members, anyway.
So, it's funny. It seems like it was a blink of an eye that you were first elected to the Congress, and I don't think we've congratulated you on your recent reelection. But
thank you. It was a much earlier election night.
Yeah, indeed. But how are you feeling about things going into your second term? Or do you feel like...
Are you beaten down yet, is our question.
Well, yeah, actually, yeah. Thank you for saving me the time. Are you beaten down?
No, I've never been more optimistic. I'd be feeling beaten down if the American people had looked at all of this nonsense and shrugged their shoulders and said, well, this freedom thing's overrated. Maybe we ought to give socialism a chance. But that's decidedly not what they are saying. And I've never been more optimistic about the long-term future of this country than I am right now. And by the way, I'm not one of those who's going to give up on California either. I think that...
well, you're a fool, but go on.
Well, yeah, it's just taking California a little longer to wake up, but I will make this prediction that Jerry Brown will be to California what Barack Obama has been to the rest of the country, one big wake-up call, and it would not surprise me in the least to see the same dramatic turnaround that we saw nationally in 2010 occur in California in 2012.
So you don't think Jerry's an old man who's finally seen the light and is going to do the right thing?
I certainly hope he is.
Going to China?
I certainly hope he is, but I don't have a great degree of confidence in that hope.
Tom McClintock is on the line. Well, what about the oft discussed, and this is we've decided that we will never use the term Bush tax cuts. We either use the term current tax rates or Clinton tax hikes. What are the chances that the Clinton tax hikes will be reinstated?
Well, the bill coming to the floor today is to increase the taxes on only those very wealthy folks making over $250,000 a year, which is a big sigh of relief to the rest of us until you realize more than half of those very wealthy folks aren't very wealthy, and they aren't even folks. Those are the small businesses filing under Subchapter S. I mean, those are the job generators that we're relying on to restore prosperity, and yet that's the group that the Democrats are singling out for a massive tax increase. That's insane.
I like the fact that they always use the term not raising taxes on millionaires and billionaires.
Yeah,
except it starts at $250, so that could be any small business owner.
Yeah, some insurance guy who's had a pretty good year living in the Bay Area could easily, him and his honey, make $260K this year for the first time ever. They're not, quote, the wealthy.
Millionaires and billionaires.
Well, and particularly those small businesses that are filing under Subchapter S. And again, more than half the taxpayers in that bracket aren't people; they're small businesses.
So that's going to get squashed, though, right?
I don't know. I can make a much better prediction of what will happen on January the 3rd. Left to the new House, there will be tax increases on nobody in the worst recession since the Depression.
Congressman Tom McClintock of the 4th District. I'm afraid we're out of time, Tom, so I can't badger you for a spot on a fake commission like I always do. But keep fighting the good fight, all right?
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on short notice. We appreciate that.
Yep. At least we're talking.
I don't know why he's so optimistic. I'll never understand that.
Character flaw.
Delusion. You're listening to the Armstrong and Getty Show. Is the future of America, you show up to work and your boss says, well, your future potential boss says, I think you're too fat to work here. They weigh you and turn you away.
Get out, chunky.
We're going to talk about that coming up. It's 8 o'clock, the Armstrong and Getty Show.